Russia's favorite weapon just broke. It wasn't blown up by a drone or captured on a battlefield, it was dismantled by a country Moscow spent decades ignoring. Romania just flipped the switch on the Black Sea, and overnight, the Kremlin's entire playbook for Eastern Europe became obsolete. They didn't fire a shot, they just made sure Russia can't win. See, for years, Russia didn't need to win wars the normal way. They didn't need mass invasions or massive offensives. They preferred something quieter, unmarked troops, mysterious drones, local militias that just magically appeared overnight. The kind of operations where everyone knows who's behind it, but nobody can prove it fast enough to react. That's how Crimea happened. That's how pressure gets applied in places like Moldova. And that's how Russia has been able to bully its neighbors without triggering a full NATO response. It's not war, it's something just below it. And that gray zone, that's where Russia has always been most dangerous, because confusion buys time, and time wins territory. Now here's the problem. Romania just turned the lights on. For a long time, the Black Sea was a place where things could move quietly. Ships repositioning, aircraft probing airspace, unidentified drones testing reactions. You could do just enough to pressure without getting caught red-handed, but that only works if nobody's watching properly. Romania is now watching properly. With NATO integration accelerating, Romania isn't just another country on the map anymore. It's becoming a sensor wall. We're talking F-35 level awareness, not just fighter jets, but everything connected to them. Airspace monitoring, electronic signals, movement tracking across land, sea, and sky. This isn't just we saw something. This is we saw it, tracked it, classified it, and shared it instantly. If a Russian Kilo-class submarine even thinks about leaving Sevastopol, or a Su-27 warms up its engines in Crimea, Romania's sensors have already painted them for every NATO asset in the region. There is no getting ready. There is only being watched from the moment a bolt turns. And this is where it becomes a problem for Russia, because their entire playbook relies on ambiguity. They need confusion, they need deniability, they need just enough uncertainty so everyone argues instead of reacting. But when Romania plugs into NATO's full sensor network, that ambiguity starts collapsing fast. Imagine trying to sneak into a room and suddenly someone installs stadium floodlights. That's what this is, except instead of a room, it's the entire Western Black Sea. Now every unmarked movement starts looking very marked. Every drone has a trajectory, every ship has a pattern, every mystery operation becomes a lot less mysterious. And here's the part Russia really hates. This doesn't require Romania to fire a single shot. They don't need to escalate, they don't need permission, they just watch. And by watching better than before, they remove the one thing Russia depends on most: surprise. Because once you lose surprise, you lose initiative. And when you lose initiative, you stop controlling the situation. Now, Russia isn't deciding what happens next, they're reacting, and it gets worse. Because seeing something early is one thing, but Romania didn't stop there. They built something that turns that early warning into a problem Russia can't outrun. Something that doesn't just detect movement, it punishes it fast. And this is where Romania's enemies start to really hate what's coming next. Knowing something is happening doesn't stop it. That's the part people miss. You can have the best satellites in the world, the clearest intelligence, the fastest alerts, and still lose ground if you can't move fast enough to respond. And for a long time, that's exactly what Russia has been betting on. Because in their mind, NATO has one fatal weakness. It's slow. Too many meetings, too many approvals, too many countries arguing over wording while something is already happening on the ground. By the time a decision is made, it's already too late. That's not even an insult. That's just how large alliances work. And Russia has built entire strategies around that delay. Move fast, create a situation, force everyone else to react to your timeline. But Romania looked at that and basically said, all right, what if we remove the delay? Not politically, physically. Because while everyone was focused on tanks and jets, Romania started building something much less exciting. Highways, bridges, rail links, the kind of thing nobody clicks on. until suddenly it matters more than anything else. At first glance, it looks like normal infrastructure. Projects like the Via Carpathia and Rail 2C. On paper, they're just highways and tracks connecting the Baltic to the Black Sea. But for a Russian planner, they are high-speed conveyor belts for NATO's heaviest armor. Nothing threatening about that, but here's what Russia sees when they look at it. They don't see roads, they see timelines collapsing. We're talking about the Midnight Response, an entire NATO armored brigade moving from the Danube to the Moldovan border in the time it takes for a mid-level bureaucrat in Moscow to finish his morning coffee. No buildup, no warning, just movement. Because these aren't just civilian roads anymore. They're military arteries, built to move heavy equipment fast without delay. Imagine this. Something starts happening near Moldova. Tension spikes. Maybe unidentified forces appear again. The kind of situation Russia's used before. In the past, NATO would need time. Time to decide, time to mobilize, time to move forces across Europe. Now, Romania doesn't need time, because the roads are already there. Heavy armor can move overnight. Reinforcements don't crawl, they surge. Logistics don't get stuck, they flow. This is what you could call a midnight response. No buildup, no warning, just movement. And that's a nightmare scenario for Russia, because their strategy depends on creating a window, a short moment where they can act before anyone reacts. Romania is closing that window, not with weapons, with asphalt. It sounds almost ridiculous, until you realize wars are often decided by logistics, not firepower. There's an old saying, amateurs talk strategy, professionals talk logistics. And right now, Romania is quietly becoming very professional. Because when you combine what we just talked about, instant detection, with what we're talking about now, instant movement, you get something dangerous. You get instant response. And that changes the equation completely. Now, if something happens near Romania's border, it's not a question of will NATO respond. It's a question of how fast they're already moving. And speed kills opportunity. Russia doesn't get that comfortable buffer anymore. They don't get to test reactions slowly. They don't get to create confusion and wait. Because before confusion even spreads, forces are already on the move. And here's the uncomfortable part for Moscow. This isn't reversible. You can destroy a vehicle, you can jam a signal, you can disrupt communications, but you can't unbuild infrastructure. Those roads are there, those routes exist, that speed advantage is now permanent. And that means every future scenario, every future plan, every future gray zone move has to account for one thing. Romania can respond faster than before, a lot faster, which forces Russia into something they hate, predictability. Because when your opponent can move quickly, you can't afford to improvise. You have to plan more, hesitate more, second guess more. And hesitation in this kind of game is dangerous. But even this isn't the part that really breaks the system, because Russia still has one card they've relied on for years, a legal one, a political one, a loophole that's kept places like Moldova just out of reach of NATO protection. And for a long time, that loophole worked perfectly, until Romania found a way around it. For years, Moldova has been stuck in a very strange position. Not part of NATO, not fully under Russian control, just sitting there in between. On paper, it's neutral. And that word neutral has been incredibly useful for Russia, because neutrality sounds peaceful, but in reality it creates a gap, a legal gray zone. Moldova can't just invite NATO troops in, and NATO can't just deploy forces there either. Everything gets stuck in procedures, votes, approvals, the same slow system Russia had been counting on. So while everyone debates what's allowed, Russia gets room to operate. Pressure builds politically, influence spreads economically, and Moldova stays just unstable enough without triggering a full response. It's like locking a door and then throwing away the key, except Russia kept a copy, and for a long time that worked. Moldova stayed vulnerable, NATO stayed cautious, and Russia kept its leverage without needing to escalate. But then Romania did something very Romanian about it. They didn't try to break the rules, they just walked around them. Because instead of forcing Moldova into NATO, they started connecting Moldova to Romania. Piece by piece, quietly. Energy came first. Moldova used to rely heavily on Russian energy, which, as we've seen before, comes with conditions. Let's just say your heating bill starts depending on your foreign policy. Romania built a physical bypass. Pipelines like the Iasi-Ungheni link and high-voltage interconnectors mean that when Moscow tries to use winter as a weapon, Romania just flips a different switch. Moldova's lights stay on, and Russia's bill for political gas goes unpaid. Suddenly, Russia can't just turn off the lights to apply pressure, and that alone is a big deal. But Romania didn't stop there. Economic integration followed. Trade routes expanded, infrastructure links improved, and cross-border movement became easier and more normal. Moldova didn't suddenly join the West overnight, but it started functioning like it was already part of it. Then came security cooperation. Not NATO level, not officially, but enough to matter. Training, coordination, support structures, all happening without triggering the big red NATO expansion alarm. And here's where it gets uncomfortable for Russia, because none of this breaks the rules. There's no single moment they can point to and say, this is illegal. No clear escalation they can respond to. No obvious trigger that justifies a reaction. That's what Romania is doing. They're turning Moldova into a de facto extension of the West, without ever needing a formal NATO vote, which means Russia's favorite excuse, this crosses a line, doesn't really work anymore, because the line never gets crossed. It just gets erased. And once that happens, the entire strategy starts to fall apart. Because Russia isn't dealing with a weak, isolated Moldova anymore. They're dealing with a Moldova that's quietly backed, connected, and supported by a NATO country sitting right next to it, which means any pressure applied to Moldova now carries risk. And risk is something Russia tries to control very carefully. But here's the real problem. Even after losing ambiguity, even after losing speed, even after losing leverage, Russia still had one asset left in the region. One piece on the board that used to freeze everything. Transnistria. And for years, that tiny strip of land was enough to keep Moldova stuck exactly where Russia wanted it. Not anymore. For years, Transnistria looked like a problem nobody could solve. A thin strip of land, barely recognized, sitting between Moldova and Ukraine, with Russian troops still stationed there like a leftover from another era. On paper, it didn't look like much, but in reality, it was incredibly effective. Because it froze everything. Moldova couldn't fully move toward the West without dealing with it. NATO couldn't get involved without escalating, and Russia didn't need to do anything dramatic. Just having troops there was enough to keep the entire situation locked in place. It was cheap, it was quiet, and it worked. A classic Russian move, minimal effort, maximum leverage. But that only works if the rest of the system stays weak. And that's exactly what Romania started changing. Because once Moldova began disconnecting from Russian energy, once trade routes started shifting west, once infrastructure started linking it closer to Romania, something important happened. Transnistria stopped being a lever and started becoming a liability. Because now instead of controlling Moldova, it's just sitting there, isolated, cut off from easy resupply routes, especially with Ukraine no longer an option. Surrounded by a Moldova that is becoming more stable, more connected, and less dependent on Russia by the year. That tiny garrison that once froze an entire country now looks more like a stranded outpost. And stranded outposts come with a problem. You have to maintain them. You have to pay for them. You have to keep them supplied. This is where it flips. Because instead of costing Romania and Moldova stability, Transnistria now costs Russia resources. It's like owning a car that used to win races, but now just sits in your garage burning money. It still exists. It still looks intimidating on paper, but it doesn't actually give you control anymore. And that's the part Russia can't easily fix. They can't reinforce it without escalating. They can't abandon it without losing face. And they can't use it the way they used to because the environment around it has changed. So now they're stuck, paying for something that no longer delivers. And then there's the river. Russia obsessed over the Black Sea. They measured control in ships and missiles, thinking they could choke Ukraine by dominating the coast. But while they were looking out to sea, the Danube stopped being background noise. It turned into a spine. Romania didn't just open a port. They normalized a corridor that Russia cannot touch. Every barge carrying grain, fuel, or equipment through the Danube is floating through a NATO sanctuary. Russia can't blockade a river that sits inside sovereign NATO territory without starting World War III. They thought they had the exit blocked, but Romania just built a 1,700-mile back door, and that door is wide open. And when you step back and look at everything together, this is where the bigger picture hits. Russia didn't lose a battle. They lost a system. The ability to stay hidden is gone. The ability to act before anyone responds is gone. The ability to control Moldova through pressure is slipping. And the ability to freeze the situation with Transnistria is fading. And none of this happened overnight. No dramatic invasion, no headline moment, just a series of quiet changes that stacked on top of each other. Romania didn't try to overpower Russia. They just made Russia's strategy stop working. And that's a much bigger problem because you can replace a tank, you can rebuild a unit, you can even change commanders. But you can't easily rewrite how you fight wars. Russia built its playbook around ambiguity, speed, and pressure. Romania just removed all three. And here's the part that makes this irreversible. You can destroy equipment, you can disrupt communications, you can even escalate militarily, but you can't unbuild infrastructure, you can't unsync energy grids, you can't disconnect a country that's already been connected. That reality is now locked in. So, from this point forward, every plan Russia makes in this region starts at a disadvantage. Every move gets seen earlier, every action gets answered faster, every pressure tactic becomes less effective. And that's why Romania's enemies aren't reacting to a single event. They're reacting to something much worse, a shift they can't undo. Because this isn't about what Romania has today. It's about what the region is becoming. And once that shift is complete, there's no going back. Russia can still fight. They can still threaten. But they're playing a game where the rules were just deleted. And in the Kremlin, that silence is louder than any explosion.